No one could reach the grieving CEO in his glass tower until a janitor's 4-year-old daughter walked past security with a pink lunchbox. For 17 months, David Thorne had sealed himself inside a silence so complete his own board called it a corporate liability. Then a little girl in a yellow dress stepped into his corner office, looked at his hollow face, and asked a single question that would crack his world wide open. "This is David Thorne, founder of Ethelgard Technologies, a man who hadn't spoken in a board meeting in over 5 months. His grief after losing his wife was costing his company $2 million a week and pushing 1,200 employees toward a cliff. How does a man that broken, in a fortress that's secure, get reached by a preschooler? To understand that, you have to start with the one person still allowed inside, the night janitor." Her name was Anya Petrova, and she worked the midnight to 8 shift, the only janitorial slot where building security didn't ask questions about a child in a supply closet. She was a single mother, 28 years old, and she had been cleaning the Ethelgard Tower for 11 months. She was good at being unseen. That was the primary job requirement. David Thorne's private elevator required a keycard, his office door a separate biometric scan. But the service entrance to the executive floor, the one used for trash removal and carpet cleaning, had a simple mechanical lock. Anya had the key. She was, for all practical purposes, the only person who entered David Thorne's world without an appointment. And David's world had become a monument to silence. His wife, Elena, had died 14 months earlier, a sudden aneurysm on a Thursday afternoon. No warning, she was 34. The man who returned to work after her funeral was a ghost operating a multi-billion-dollar machine. For 6 months, he functioned on a kind of autopilot, but then the autopilot failed. He stopped taking meetings. He stopped answering emails from his chief operating officer. The last board meeting he attended, 5 months before Anya's daughter walked in, he had said exactly 3 words: "The numbers lie." Then he had stood up and walked out. He hadn't been back since. His office became his entire universe, a glass-walled cell on the 32nd floor with a view of the city he had stopped seeing. His assistant, a fiercely loyal man named Ben, delivered meals that were mostly returned untouched. A corporate wellness coach, hired by the board, had been politely but firmly turned away after 2 visits. David spoke only to his lawyer and only about legal necessities. The official company line was that the founder was focusing on long-term strategy. The internal truth, whispered in panic on the trading floor, was that the ship had no captain. Ethelgard's stock price began a slow, sickening slide. The $2 million a week figure wasn't hyperbole. It was the average calculated loss in market capitalization and stalled deals. On the other side of the city, Anya lived inside margins so thin they could cut you. Her alarm went off at 9:15 in the evening. Not 9:30, not 9, 9:15. That gave her 45 minutes to get herself and Maya ready, 53 minutes on the bus if the transfers aligned, and a 7-minute walk to the service entrance to clock in by 11:59. She calculated her life in minutes, because minutes were the only currency she couldn't borrow. The apartment was a studio that legally shouldn't have been rented to 2 people. Maya slept on the bed. Anya slept on a fold-out mat on the floor. The last time she'd had a babysitter who didn't cancel, Maya was 2. So Maya came to work. Anya had fashioned a nest for her in the janitorial supply closet on 31, with a folded moving blanket and a pillow she brought from home. She stocked it with crackers, juice boxes, and a tablet with dying batteries that played the same cartoon movie on a loop. The rule was simple. Maya stayed in the closet until Anya's first break at 3 a.m. It was a terrible rule. Maya was 4, but it was the only rule they had. For months, their orbits never touched. Anya cleaned around David's silence. She would empty the wastebasket next to his desk while he stared at the skyline, his back to her. She would wipe the smudges from the glass wall, her reflection passing over his like a shadow. He never acknowledged her. She never spoke. This was the unspoken contract of invisible work. She knew his rhythms. He would finally sleep, slumped in his chair. Around 4 a.m., that's when she would do the detailed cleaning of his office floor, moving so quietly her sneakers made no sound on the polished concrete. She knew things about him nobody in the boardroom did. She knew he kept a framed photograph of Elena in his top desk drawer, not on display. She knew he tapped his fingers in a specific pattern, 3 slow, 2 fast, when he was reading the financial reports that seemed to cause him physical pain. She knew, because she emptied them, that he was prescribed sleeping pills he never took. The full bottles accumulated in the bin. One night in early March, the system broke. Anya's usual bus was cancelled. She arrived at the tower at 12:18, 19 minutes late, her heart hammering against her ribs. Late arrival was a terminable offense. Her supervisor, a man named Carl who had never seen Maya and didn't want to, was waiting at the time clock. He didn't yell, he just pointed at the clock, then at a memo on the bulletin board about punctuality. Anya apologized twice, her voice tight. She got her cart and rushed to the elevator, Maya stumbling sleepily beside her. She was behind schedule all night. Rattled, she missed her 3 a.m. break. At 4:30, exhausted and behind, she was cleaning a conference room on 31 when she heard it. A small, panicked cry, then a door clicking open. She dropped her rag and ran to the supply closet. It was empty. The blanket was rumpled. The tablet was dark. Maya was gone. Anya's blood went cold. The rules flooded her mind. Do not let the child be seen. Do not let the child disturb the offices. Do not, under any circumstances, let the child go to the 32nd floor. She ran to the stairwell, her shoes squeaking on the steps, her mind conjuring images of open elevator shafts, of alarm systems, of Carl finding Maya and calling security and child services, and the end of everything. She pushed open the door to 32. The hallway was dark, lit only by emergency floor lighting. And there, at the far end, silhouetted against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the city night, was a small figure in yellow pajamas. Maya was standing perfectly still, facing the one door on that hall that was always closed, the thick, polished oak door to David Thorne's corner office. But tonight it wasn't closed. It was open. A sliver of warm, yellow light spilled out onto the dark carpet. Anya froze 20 feet away. She couldn't call out. She couldn't run. Any sound might wake him, might bring disaster. She watched, paralyzed, as her daughter, driven by a curiosity that knew no rules, took a small step forward, then another. Maya pushed the heavy door with both hands. It swung inward silently on well-oiled hinges. From where she stood, Anya could see a slice of the office. David Thorne was at his desk, his head in his hands. He wasn't sleeping. He was just sitting there in the middle of the night, broken in a way she suddenly understood was deeper than grief. Maya took 2 steps into the room. She stopped. She tilted her head. And David Thorne, the man who hadn't spoken to another human being in weeks, slowly lifted his head. He looked at the small girl in the doorway. He didn't shout. He didn't call security. He just stared, his expression unreadable in the shadowed light. Maya, utterly fearless, took one more step forward, clutching her worn, stuffed octopus. "Mama says you're sad," Maya said, her voice clear in the absolute quiet. Anya stopped breathing. This was it. This was the moment she would be fired. This was the moment their fragile life would shatter. She waited for the anger, the cold dismissal, the summoning of security. But David Thorne didn't do any of those things. He was silent for so long that Anya thought maybe he hadn't heard. Then, he did something she could never have predicted. He let out a breath that was almost a sigh, and very, very slowly he nodded. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice a rusty, unused thing. Maya, clutching her octopus, took 2 more steps into the room. "Maya, I'm 4, she pointed at the stuffed toy. "This is Inky." Then, with the brutal honesty of a child, she added, "Your eyes are red." From the doorway, Anya's hand was pressed against her mouth. Every instinct screamed to run in, grab her daughter, and flee. But something in David's posture, the way he had asked the question, not with anger, but with genuine, exhausted curiosity, kept her rooted. "They are," David said, acknowledging the observation without defense. "When I cry, my eyes get red too," Maya offered, as if sharing a scientific fact. "Mama says it's okay to cry." David didn't respond to that. Instead, he looked past Maya, his gaze finding Anya in the dark hallway. She flinched, caught. For a long second, they looked at each other, the billionaire in his tomb of glass and the janitor in her uniform. Then he did the unthinkable. He gestured, a small motion of his hand, for her to come in. Anya walked into the office on legs that felt like water. "Mr. Thorne, I am so sorry." She got out. "I was behind, "It's all right," he interrupted, his voice low. He looked back at Maya. "You're here at night." We work at night, Maya said proudly. Mama cleans, I wait in the closet. Something shifted in David's face. A flicker of comprehension, then something darker, a shame so profound it seemed to physically settle on him. He looked at Anya, really looked at her for the first time. He saw the dark circles under her eyes, the worn patches on her uniform sleeves, the way she held herself as if bracing for a blow. You bring your daughter to work, he stated, not asked. I don't have a choice, Anya said, the truth pulled from her by the sheer strangeness of the moment. David nodded slowly. He looked from Anya to Maya, then at the city lights beyond the window. The silence stretched, but it was a different silence now. Charged, fragile. Does she come here often? He finally asked. Never, Anya said quickly. Never before tonight. I have a system. She stays in the closet on 31. It's safe, I promise. David's gaze returned to Maya, who was now quietly examining the wheels of his office chair. A closet, he repeated, the word tasting bitter. He closed his eyes for a second. When he opened them, he looked at Anya. Take her home, it's late. Anya's heart sank. This was it, the gentle dismissal before the termination notice. Mr. Thorne, please, I need this job. I won't let it happen again, I swear. I'm not firing you, he said, and the shock of it was a physical sensation. Just take her home, get some sleep. Stunned, Anya could only nod. She moved forward, took Maya's hand. Come on, sweetheart, say goodnight to Mr. Thorne. Maya looked up at David. Good night, sad man. Then she turned and walked out with her mother, leaving David alone in the yellow light. Anya didn't sleep that day. She waited for a call from Carl, from HR, from a lawyer. It never came. When she arrived for her shift the next night, heart pounding, everything was normal. Carl didn't mention anything. The time clock accepted her card. The supply closet on 31 was untouched. She worked in a state of high alert, jumping at every sound. When it came time to clean the 32nd floor, she approached David's office like one might approach a sleeping animal. The door was closed. She listened. Nothing. She cleaned the hallway quickly and moved on. The next night was the same, and the next. A week passed. The incident seemed to have vanished into the ether, a strange dream. Anya began to relax, to believe in the impossible, that he had simply let it go. Then, on a Thursday night, she found the first gift. It was outside the supply closet door on 31. A small, brand-new child's sleeping bag, rolled up and tied with a ribbon. There was no note. Anya stared at it, her mind racing. It had to be from him. Who else? But why? She brought it inside the closet. Maya was thrilled. A cocoon, she declared, and immediately zipped herself inside. Anya felt a confusion that bordered on fear. Was this kindness, or was it a trap, a piece of evidence to be used later? She decided not to use it, to leave it rolled up in the corner. But the next night, it was gone. In its place was a plastic container of fresh-cut fruit, strawberries, mango, pineapple, the kind of fruit Anya couldn't afford. Again, no note. This pattern continued. Small, anonymous offerings appeared every few nights. A new pack of crayons and a coloring book, a child-sized flashlight, a pair of fuzzy socks. They were always practical, always quiet, and always left where only Anya would find them. She never thanked him, she never acknowledged them. But she started using them. Maya colored in the book. She ate the fruit, she wore the socks. And then, 3 weeks after the first encounter, Maya escaped again. This time Anya was only a few steps behind, but Maya was faster. She darted straight for the oak door, which was, once again, open a crack. Before Anya could stop her, Maya pushed it open and marched in. David was at his desk, but he wasn't working. He was just sitting, staring at a single sheet of paper. I brought you a picture, Maya announced, holding up a crayon drawing. It was of 3 stick figures, a big one, a medium one, and a small one holding a blob with 8 lines. That's you and Mama and me and Inky. David took the drawing. He looked at it for a long time. Thank you, Maya, he said, and his voice was less rusty now. He set it carefully on his desk next to his keyboard. It's very good. You can keep it, Maya said magnanimously. Then she climbed onto the leather couch against the wall, making herself at home. What's that? She asked, pointing at the paper he'd been staring at. David hesitated. It's a letter from some people who want me to do a job. Don't you like your job? I used to, he said, and then, to Anya's astonishment, he began to talk, not about board meetings or stock prices, but about building things. He told Maya, in simple terms, about how he used to love putting ideas together like Lego blocks, about how his company made software that helped doctors talk to each other. He spoke for 5 minutes, and it was the most Anya had ever heard him say. Maya listened intently. When he finished, she said, "My friend Lily's mommy is a doctor, she's nice." David almost smiled. It was just a twitch at the corner of his mouth, but Anya saw it. "I'm glad she's nice," he said. That night became a template. Once or twice a week, Maya would escape, and David would let her stay for 10, then 15, then 20 minutes. He never initiated the visits, but he never turned her away. He answered her questions with a patient seriousness he reportedly showed to no one else. Anya would linger in the hallway, listening, her initial terror slowly melting into a bewildered awe. She began to notice changes in him. The trays of food sent up by the company kitchens started coming back partially eaten. The bottles of untouched pills in his wastebasket stopped appearing. One night she heard him on the phone. It wasn't a long call and his voice was tense, but he was speaking. To his lawyer maybe, or his COO, he was re-engaging. The invisible gifts for Maya continued, but now they were accompanied by subtler changes. A high-quality air purifier appeared in the supply closet one night, silently cleaning the chemical smell from the air. The burned-out light bulb was replaced with a softer, warmer one. It was as if he was retrofitting her prison into a nursery, one silent gesture at a time. But the world outside that quiet midnight orbit was spiraling. Anya, emboldened by the strange truce, made a mistake. She used the executive elevator to take her cart down one night because the service elevator was broken. Carl saw her. He didn't say anything, but his eyes narrowed. The next week, a new memo appeared. All non-executive staff are reminded to use DESIGNATD service elevators and entrances. Failure to comply will result in disciplinary action. The pressure was building on David's side too. One night, Maya found him not at his desk, but standing at the window, his fists clenched at his sides. He was staring at a news channel playing on a muted screen. The ticker at the bottom read, ATHLGRDQ2 losses projected 2 triple, board EVLUATNG all OPTIONS. "You're mad," Maya observed, stopping a few feet away. "I'm not mad," David said, but his voice was tight, a wire about to snap. "I'm tired. My mama gets tired too. She says grown-up stuff is hard." David turned from the window and looked at her. "Your mama is very smart," he said quietly. Then he did something he'd never done before. He knelt down, his movements slightly stiff, so he was closer to her eye level. "Maya, I might have to go away for a little while to fix some of this grown-up stuff." Maya's face fell. "Where?" "I don't know yet." "Will you come back?" The question hung in the air. David didn't answer. He just reached out and, with a tenderness that made Anya's throat tighten, straightened the yellow hair clip on Maya's afro. "You should go find your mama," he said, his voice thick. That was the last visit for a while. The next night, the oak door was locked, and the night after, David stopped coming to the office at night altogether. The gifts stopped. The silence returned, deeper and colder than before. Anya thought that was the end of it, a strange, beautiful interlude that was over. She missed the soft light from his door. Maya asked about the sad man for a few nights, then moved on. Then, 2 weeks later, the storm hit. Anya was cleaning a bathroom on the 25th floor when her phone buzzed. It was a news alert. "Breaking, Ethelgard board calls emergency vote for Friday. Sources say ouster of founder David Thorne is inevitable." She read it twice, her stomach turning to ice. The vote was in 48 hours. That same night, as she cleaned the now dark 32nd floor, she saw a sliver of light under his door. He was back. On impulse, she did something she never did. She knocked. No answer. She knocked again, louder. "Mr. Thorne." The door opened so suddenly she stumbled back. David stood there, but he was transformed. He was wearing a rumpled suit, his eyes were bloodshot, and in his hand was a crystal glass with an inch of amber liquid. He looked like a man who had already lost. What? He snapped, the word harsh in the hallway. Anya, terrified, almost fled, but she thought of Maya's drawing pinned somewhere in that office. She thought of the fruit, the socks, the way he had listened. I saw the news, she whispered. David's bitter expression didn't change. Congratulations, you and the rest of the world. I'm sorry, she said, and she meant it. He studied her for a moment, the anger draining from his face, replaced by a hollow exhaustion. Why are you sorry? You'll still have a job. The new CEO will need the floors cleaned too. It wasn't about her job, and they both knew it. Anya gathered every ounce of courage she had. Maya, she asked if you were coming back. I didn't know what to tell her. David flinched as if struck. He looked away into the dark office. Tell her I'm sorry, he said, his voice breaking. Tell her I couldn't fix it. He started to close the door, but Anya, acting on an instinct she didn't understand, put her hand out to stop it. What if you didn't have to fix it alone? She asked, the words tumbling out. He stared at her, confused, angry again. What does that mean? It means, she took a shaky breath. It means a 4-year-old saw you were sad and tried to help. Maybe you let someone else try too. For a long moment, he said nothing. The city lights glittered behind him. Then he let out a short, humorless laugh. Like who? The board. They're not bringing me fruit and crayons, Anya. They're bringing a guillotine. Then talk to them, she pleaded, surprising herself with her own fervor. Before Friday, tell them what you told Maya, about the Lego blocks, about helping doctors. They followed that man. Do they even know he's still in there? David was silent, his gaze locked on hers. She saw a war raging behind his eyes, a war between surrender and a fight he believed was already lost. He looked down at the glass in his hand, then slowly set it on a console table by the door. They won't listen, he said, but it was a statement of fact, not a dismissal. You won't know unless you try, Anya said. Then she added the only thing she had left. Maya believes you can. She turned and walked away, leaving him standing in the doorway. She didn't look back. She had said her piece. The rest was up to him. The next 24 hours were a vacuum of silence. The news cycle churned with speculation, with leaked documents, with analysts picking over the corpse of Ethelgard. Anya went through her shift in a daze, jumping at every ping from her phone. Then at 11 p.m. the night before the vote, as she was mopping the lobby, she saw him. David Thorne walked out of the executive elevator. He was wearing a fresh, pressed suit. His hair was trimmed. He carried a single leather folio, but it was his eyes that stopped her. They were clear, focused, and utterly terrified. He walked past her without a word, headed for the main doors where a car was waiting. He was going to fight. But as he reached the doors, he paused. He turned, and his eyes found hers across the vast, empty marble lobby. He gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. Then he was gone, into the night, to face the board that wanted to destroy him. Anya didn't sleep. She stayed up, refreshing news sites on her phone, watching the sunrise paint the city in grays and pinks. The vote was at 9 a.m. She had no way of knowing what happened. The corporate world was a sealed sphere, its battles fought in soundproof rooms with language she didn't speak. At 9:17, her phone buzzed with another alert. Her heart leapt into her throat, but it wasn't news. It was a calendar notification she'd forgotten to delete. Maya Pediatrician, 10:30. The real world, with its real bills and real needs, hadn't paused for the drama on the 32nd floor. She got Maya ready, the little girl chattering about Inky's new adventure, oblivious to the tectonic plates shifting in her mother's life. Meanwhile, in the Ethelgard Tower, David Thorne faced a wall of suits. The boardroom table was a glacial expanse of polished wood. Seated around it were 7 men and 3 women. Some were allies he'd appointed. Others were institutional investors who saw a failing asset. At the head of the table sat Malcolm Vance, the lead independent director and the architect of the morning's proceedings. A former naval officer, he believed a sinking ship required a swift change of command. David didn't sit. He stood at the end of the table, the leather folio unopened. He had prepared charts, projections, a turnaround plan, but as he looked at their faces, a mix of pity, impatience, and cold calculation, the words on the pages felt like ash. He thought of Maya asking if he'd come back. He thought of Anya telling him to talk about the Lego blocks. "Malcolm, members of the board," he began, his voice steady but quieter than his old commanding tone. "I know the numbers, I've seen the projections. You're looking at a founder who checked out. You're not wrong." A ripple of surprise went around the table. They'd expected defiance, anger, a legalistic defense, not confession. 14 months ago, my wife died," David continued, the words still raw, but he pushed them out. "I didn't handle it. I buried myself in work until that didn't work either, and then I buried myself in silence. I cost this company and all of you a great deal. For that, you have my sincere apology." Malcolm Vance leaned forward. "David, we all grieve with you, but this is a fiduciary responsibility. The company is hemorrhaging value. We need decisive, present leadership. The proposal before us is for you to step into the role of Chairman Emeritus, focusing on long-term vision, while we appoint an interim CEO to stabilize operations." It was a polite coup, a golden cage. David would be a figurehead, his influence neutered. "I understand the proposal," David said. He took a breath, choosing his next words with more care than he had any deal in his life. "But I'm here to ask you to vote against it." Now the room stirred with audible discontent. One of the investors, a man named Jacobs, spoke up. "On what basis, David? Your recent track record doesn't inspire confidence." "On the basis that the man who built this company is still here," David said, his voice gaining a sliver of its old steel. "And he remembers why he built it. It wasn't for the exit strategy. It was because a good friend of mine died because 2 hospitals using different software couldn't share his scan results in time. We built the bridge, that's our core. That's the Lego block everything else stacks on. And for the past 5 months, I've been letting that bridge rust while I stared out a window." He paused, meeting each of their eyes. "You want decisive leadership? I'm deciding right now to come back, not as a figurehead. As your CEO, I'm asking for 90 days, not to make promises on a spreadsheet, but to show you, to show the market, to show the 1,200 people in this building who are watching this room right now, wondering if the soul of this company is already dead." He didn't use the slides. He talked about the doctor communication platform, about the lives it had saved, about the pipeline of innovations that had stalled. He spoke for 12 minutes. When he finished, the room was silent. Malcolm Vance steepled his fingers. 90 days is an eternity in the current climate, David. The stock would tank on the uncertainty. "Then we don't announce it," David said, a plan forming in real time. "We announce that the board has full confidence in the founding team and is backing a new strategic initiative. We leak a hint of a major partnership. We buy the 90 days with a story." It was a gamble, a huge one. The board debated for an hour. David waited outside, staring at a painting in the hall, an abstract splash of blue that Alina had chosen. He thought of her, and for the first time, the thought didn't bring a wave of crippling pain. It brought a faint, steadying warmth. Finally, he was called back in. Malcolm Vance's expression was unreadable. "The board is prepared to offer a compromise," he said. "We will adjourn today's vote. We will not appoint an interim CEO. You will remain in operational control. But..." There was always a but. "But we are attaching a condition, a binary, non-negotiable metric. In 90 days, we need to see a signed letter of intent for a strategic partnership with a Tier 1 healthcare provider, not a pilot, a signed LOI. If you deliver that, the board will formally reaffirm your position. If you do not, you will resign immediately and we will execute the original transition plan." It was a lifeline with a time bomb tied to it, a near-impossible task for a company whose reputation was currently in tatters. David knew the Tier 1 they meant, one of the 3 massive hospital networks that had been hesitating for years. Getting one of them to commit in 90 days amid this chaos was a Herculean ask. He nodded, agreed. The tension in the room broke, replaced by a brittle, transactional relief. Hands were shaken. David walked out, his body buzzing with adrenaline and dread. He had won a stay of execution. Now he had to perform a miracle. He went straight to his office, called his COO, and started the war machine of his company back up. Emails flew, meetings were scheduled. The tower, which had moved in a quiet, anxious haze for months, suddenly hummed with frantic energy. David didn't come to the office that night. He was in back-to-back crisis meetings until 10 p.m. Anya, arriving for her shift, felt the change in the building's atmosphere immediately. The lights were on later. People moved with purpose. When she got to the 32nd floor, David's office was dark, but his assistant Ben was still there, looking harried but alive. "He's back," Ben said to her, as if sharing a state secret. "I don't know how he did it, but he's back." Anya felt a surge of relief, so powerful it made her knees weak. She cleaned with a lightness she hadn't felt in months. Maybe, just maybe, things would be okay. 2 nights later, David returned to his night office hours. The door was open. Anya saw him at his desk, on a video call, speaking rapidly. He saw her pass in the hallway and raised a hand in a brief, distracted wave. The connection, the fragile midnight world they'd built, was gone, replaced by the urgent demands of the daylit world he'd rejoined. She told herself it was for the best. But the pressure of the 90-day deadline created a vortex that sucked in everything around it. A week later, a memo from facilities management landed in every non-executive employee's inbox. Cost optimization and operational efficiency review, Phase 1. It announced a review of all third-party service contracts, including janitorial services, for potential consolidation and cost reduction. Anya read it in the break room, her coffee turning to acid in her stomach. Consolidation. That was corporate speak for finding a cheaper vendor. Carl, her supervisor, called a meeting the next afternoon. His demeanor was grim. "Listen, team, corporate is squeezing every department. Our contract is up for renewal in 60 days. They're putting it out to bid. The current provider, us, is not guaranteed to win it. I'm being honest. We need to show 0 errors, 0 complaints, maximum efficiency. Any slip-up gives them a reason to cut us." He looked directly at Anya when he said 0 errors. She knew what he meant. The incident with Maya, which he had never officially acknowledged, was a mark against her, against them all. Fear, a cold, familiar companion, moved back in. She became paranoid. She cleaned with obsessive detail. She made sure Maya was invisible, a ghost in the supply closet. The small comforts David had provided, the air purifier, the good light, felt like beacons now, evidence of special treatment she couldn't explain. Then the trap was sprung. It was a Tuesday. Anya was cleaning a bathroom on 30 when she heard Carl's voice on her radio, tight with anger. "Petrova, my office, now." She went, her heart hammering. Carl's office was a glass box overlooking the loading dock. He didn't ask her to sit. On his desk monitor was a paused frame from a security camera. It showed the executive elevator lobby on 32. The timestamp was from the previous week. At 4:20 a.m., the image showed Anya pushing her cart and Maya, holding Inky, stepping out of the executive elevator. "Care to explain?" Carl said, his voice dangerously calm. "Why you and your child were using the executive elevator in clear violation of posted policy, and more importantly, why there is a child in the building at all after hours." Anya's mouth went dry. The service elevator was out of order that night. I had no choice, and she was with me because my sitter fell through. It was a one-time thing. "A one-time thing?" Carl clicked a key. The video advanced, showing another night, another angle, Maya walking down the hall toward David Thorne's office. The security logs show the door to the executive suite was accessed by your keycard at 4:35 a.m. that same night, and then again last Thursday, and the Thursday before that. He had been building a case, watching her, gathering evidence. She sometimes wanders. I bring her right back," Anya stammered, the lies pathetic even to her own ears. "She wanders into the CEO's private office." Carl's face was red now. "Do you have any idea the liability, the security breach? This isn't a daycare, Petrova. This is a billion-dollar company. You've been bringing an unauthorized minor into a secure environment for months, falsifying your time cards to hide it, and violating about a dozen safety and security protocols." "I didn't falsify anything," Anya cried. "Mr. Thorne knew, he never complained." Carl's eyes widened, then narrowed. "Are you seriously telling me that you involved the CEO in this scheme to cover for you bringing your kid to work?" "It wasn't a scheme. He was okay with it." Carl let out a short, disbelieving laugh. Right, I'm sure he was. Well, here's what's going to happen. You're suspended, effective immediately, pending a full investigation by HR and security. Hand over your keycard and building pass. Please, Carl, I need this job. My daughter. Should have been your first thought. He cut her off coldly. You're done. Clean out your locker and leave the premises. Security will escort you out. Numb Anya did as she was told. She retrieved Maya from the supply closet, the little girl confused and sleepy. She packed their things, the coloring book, the fuzzy socks, the sleeping bag into a tote bag. 2 security guards watched as she walked to the bus stop, the weight of the world on her shoulders. She was unemployed. In 60 days, maybe less, she'd be evicted. The fragile stability she'd built over 11 months had shattered in a 10-minute meeting. That night, David worked late again. He noticed the silence in the hallway, the absence of the soft sounds of cleaning. He thought nothing of it, maybe she was on a different floor. But the next night, the silence was the same, and the night after. On the 3rd night, he saw a different janitor, an older man cleaning his office. David, on an impulse, stopped him. Excuse me, the woman who usually cleans this floor, Anya, is she okay? The man looked nervous, caught by the CEO. I don't know, sir. I was told to cover this route. I think she might have been let go. A cold dread seeped into David's bones. Let go? When? Earlier this week, I think. David dismissed the man and immediately called the head of facilities. He got a runaround about an ongoing HR matter. He called HR directly. The director, a woman named Linda, was evasive. Mr. Thorne, it's a personnel issue involving policy violations. It's being handled according to procedure. What policy violations? David demanded. I'm not at liberty to discuss the details, but it involves bringing an unauthorized minor into the building and misuse of secure areas. David's blood ran cold. He knew instantly. Carl had found out about Maya, and instead of coming to him, they'd fired her. The woman who had, in her own way, thrown him a lifeline had been thrown overboard by his own company's bureaucracy. Reinstate her, David said, his voice leaving no room for argument. Mr. Thorne, with all due respect, the process. Linda, David interrupted, his tone dropping to something quiet and deadly. There is no process that overrules me on this. You will reinstate Anya Petrova, effective immediately, with back pay for any missed shifts. You will call her personally and apologize for the distress, and you will ensure her supervisor understands that she is under my direct protection. Is that clear? There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Yes, sir, crystal clear. David hung up. He felt a savage satisfaction, but it was short-lived. He had just abused his power, overridden HR, and likely created a minor scandal. In the fragile ecosystem of his 90-day reprieve, it was a risky move, but he didn't care. He owed her. Anya's phone rang an hour later. It was Linda from HR, offering a stilted apology and her job back. Anya was too stunned to feel relief. She just said yes. She returned to work the next night under Carl's furious, silent glare. David's door was open. He was on a call, but he saw her, met her eyes, and gave a small, solemn nod. It was an apology, a thank you, a promise. But the damage was done. The story, as these stories do, leaked, not to the press, but through the corporate grapevine. CEO overrules HR to save janitor who brought kid to work. It was framed as a capricious act, a sign of erratic leadership. Malcolm Vance heard about it. He called David. David, what is this I hear about you interfering in a personnel dismissal? It was a mistake, Malcolm. She's a good employee. The punishment didn't fit the oversight. An oversight that violates security protocols. David, this is exactly the kind of distracted, emotional decision-making we are worried about. The board is watching. The 90-day clock is ticking. You can't afford perception problems. Not now. David squeezed the bridge of his nose. I understand. I hope you do, Malcolm said and hung up. David had won the battle for Anya's job, but he'd handed his enemies on the board a new weapon. The narrative that he was unstable, swayed by sentiment over sense. The 90-day deadline, already a mountain, now had avalanches rolling down its sides. And then the unthinkable happened. 2 weeks later, David was in a partner meeting when Ben rushed in, his face pale. He whispered in David's ear. David excused himself and ran to his office. On his computer was a leaked internal memo published by a financial blogger. It was the board's 90-day ultimatum. Every detail, the Tier 1 partnership requirement, the resignation clause. The blog's headline screamed, "ATHELGRD's last stand. Founder has 90 days to perform miracle or get fired." The secret was out. The stock plummeted 8% in after-hours trading. Any hope of quietly securing a partnership evaporated. Now every potential partner knew he was desperate. They would lowball him, or worse, refuse to deal with a lame duck. David stood at his window, the city lights blurring. He had fought his way back from the abyss of grief, only to be pushed to the edge of a professional cliff. The board would be in chaos. The pressure would be unbearable. He had no moves left. Except one. He looked at the crayon drawing still pinned to his corkboard. The 3 stick figures. He picked up his phone. He didn't call his lawyer. He didn't call his COO. He scrolled through his contacts, found the number he'd gotten from HR files, and took the deepest breath of his life. He called Anya. Anya stood in her kitchen, holding the phone to her ear, utterly confused. "Mr. Thorne, is everything okay?" "No," David said, the words stark and honest. "But it might be. Can you meet me? Not at the office. Somewhere neutral, the park near the tower, the one with the big fountain." "When?" "Now, please." Anya looked at Maya, who was eating cereal at the small table. She thought of the desperation in his voice, a sound she recognized. "We'll be there in 20 minutes." The park was empty in the late afternoon, a pocket of green between glass cliffs. David was sitting on a bench, dressed not in a suit but in jeans and a sweatshirt. He looked younger and more tired than Anya had ever seen him. Maya, seeing him, broke into a run. "Sad man." David managed a weak smile as she skidded to a stop in front of him. "Hi, Maya." Anya sat down cautiously on the other end of the bench. "What's wrong?" David told them everything. The leaked memo, the stock drop, the impossible pressure, the board's ultimatum laid bare for the world to see. "They think I'm desperate," he finished. "And they're right, but desperation looks like weakness, and no one partners with weakness." Anya listened, her mind reeling. The scale of it was incomprehensible to her. Billions of dollars, corporate boards, national headlines. But the man in front of her was the same man who had nodded at her daughter in a dark office. His fear was human-sized. "What can I possibly do?" she asked. David turned to Maya, who was now poking at a crack in the pavement with a stick. "You asked me once what I did. I told you I helped doctors talk to each other." Maya looked up. "To help people like Lily's mommy." "Yes," David said, his voice softening. "But the people I need to convince, the ones who run the big hospitals, they don't think about Lily's mommy. They think about numbers and risk, and right now I'm a big risk." He looked back at Anya. "I have one meeting left, tomorrow, with the chief executive of North Star Health. It's my last shot. If I go in there and pitch like every other CEO with slides and profit margins, I'll fail. They've already seen the leaks. They know the clock is ticking." "So what will you do?" Anya whispered. David took a deep breath. "I'm going to tell them the truth, not the boardroom truth, the real one, that I failed, that I got lost, and that a 4-year-old girl in a yellow dress and her mother, who cleans floors for a living, reminded me what the work was actually for." He looked at Anya, his eyes pleading. "I need you to come with me, both of you." Anya's world tilted. "Into a meeting with a hospital CEO? David, I'm a janitor. I'll make it worse. I'll say the wrong thing." "You'll say the only thing that matters," he said fiercely. "You'll be the proof. You're the reason I remembered. You and Maya are the bridge between the man I was and the man I'm trying to be again. I can't fake that. They need to see it." Maya, having lost interest in the stick, climbed onto the bench between them. "Are we going on a trip?" David looked at her. "A very important trip, Maya, to help me tell a story. Will you help?" Maya nodded seriously. "Okay." Anya felt the weight of the decision. It was madness, but she looked at David's face, stripped of all its billionaire armor, and she saw the man who had saved her job not out of power, but out of debt. A human debt. She nodded. Okay. The next morning, Anya dressed in the only nice clothes she owned, a simple navy dress she'd bought for a funeral 2 years prior. She put Maya in her bright yellow sundress, the one with the sunflower pattern. David sent a car for them. They didn't go to the Ethelgard Tower. They went to the sleek, modern headquarters of North Star Health. The lobby was all marble and quiet efficiency. Anya held Maya's hand tightly, feeling like an imposter. David walked beside them, a folio under his arm, but he carried no slides, no projector, just a few handwritten notes. They were ushered into a conference room on the top floor. Waiting for them were three people: Helen Crawford, the CEO of North Star, a woman in her 60s with sharp, assessing eyes, her chief financial officer, and her head of innovation. Introductions were made. Eyes flickered to Anya and Maya, confused but polite. Maya, fascinated by the floor-to-ceiling windows, waved at a bird on the ledge. Helen Crawford began, "David, given the very public constraints on your time, let's be direct. We've seen your technology. It's impressive, but your company's current instability is a significant concern. Convince me this isn't a last-minute gamble with a partner's reputation." David didn't open his folio. He leaned forward. "Helen, you're right. It is a gamble, but not the kind you think." He took a breath. 14 months ago, my wife died. I closed up shop. I stopped leading. I sat in a dark office and let a $2 billion company drift toward the rocks. The board gave me 90 days to fix it or get out. That memo you saw is real." The North Star executives exchanged glances. They hadn't expected this level of confession. "For months," David continued, his voice gaining strength, "the only people I saw regularly were the night cleaning staff. One of them is Anya Petrova." He gestured to her. Anya's face flushed, but she held Helen Crawford's gaze. "She worked my floor, she saw me at my worst, and she did her job invisibly while managing a secret of her own." He looked at Maya. "She couldn't afford childcare, so she brought her daughter to work. Her 4-year-old daughter, Maya." Helen Crawford's expression shifted from professional assessment to curiosity. "One night Maya got out. She walked into my office. She saw me, a stranger in the dark, and she asked me why I was sad." David's voice cracked slightly. He cleared his throat. "No board member, no therapist, no friend had asked me that. A 4-year-old did. And she kept asking, she kept coming back. She brought me crayon drawings. She told me about her friend Lily's mom, who's a doctor. She reminded me, in the simplest possible terms, that my work was supposed to help Lily's mom do her job better, not to make a stock price go up, to help a doctor save time, to maybe save a life." He paused, letting the words hang in the sunlit room. "Anya didn't have to help me. She had every reason not to. I was her boss's boss's boss, a ghost haunting the 32nd floor, but she saw a human being who was broken, and she let her daughter try to fix me." He turned to Anya. "Would you tell them why you didn't just look away?" All eyes turned to Anya. Her heart was a drum in her chest. She looked at Maya, then at Helen Crawford. "Because everyone deserves to be seen," she said, her voice quiet but clear. "Even the man in the corner office, especially him. When you're that alone, you stop being a CEO, you're just a person, and people need other people." Helen Crawford was silent for a long moment. She looked at Maya, who was now quietly drawing on a notepad with a pen she'd found. "And what do you think of David, Maya?" she asked, her tone gentle. Maya looked up. "He's not so sad anymore, and he helps doctors. That's good." A faint smile touched Helen's lips. She looked back at David. "This is a highly unorthodox presentation, David." "I know," he said, "but the orthodoxy wasn't working. The technology is sound. The team is brilliant, but I lost the why. This," he said, gesturing to Anya and Maya, "is my why. To build bridges that matter, for people like Anya who show up, and for kids like Maya who deserve a world where the systems work. If you partner with us, you're not betting on a flawless company. You're betting on a company that remembers its humanity, because its leader just got the lesson of his life from a preschooler." The meeting ended shortly after. No promises were made. David, Anya, and Maya rode down the elevator in silence. In the car, David finally spoke. "Thank you. Whatever happens, thank you." 2 days later, David's phone rang. It was Helen Crawford. "David," she said, "my board thinks I'm insane, But I've spent 40 years in healthcare. I've seen systems fail because they forget the human element at both ends, the patient and the practitioner. You just showed me you haven't forgotten. Let's draw up the papers. A 5-year partnership. We'll be your tier 1. David sank into his chair, the weight of the world dissolving from his shoulders. He had done it. The announcement sent Ethelgard's stock soaring, not just recovering the losses, but hitting a yearly high. The board, stunned, unanimously voted to reaffirm David as CEO. Malcolm Vance even offered a grudging compliment. "I don't know how you pulled that rabbit out of the hat, David, but well done." But David's first act after securing his position wasn't a press conference. It was another meeting with Anya. He offered her a new job, Director of Workplace Experience, a role to oversee the well-being and environment of all non-executive staff, a salary that would change her life. "The company needs a conscience," he told her, "someone who remembers what it's like to be invisible." Anya accepted. Her first proposal was the creation of an on-site, subsidized daycare center for all employees, named the Sunflower Center after Maya's dress. The board, riding the wave of positive PR, approved it. Maya became a minor legend in the building. She sometimes visited David's office after school, now a vibrant place with its door always open. She would tell him about her day, and he would listen, really listen. The final surprising detail came a year later. During a routine audit of vendor contracts, Anya discovered that the janitorial service provider, Carl's company, had been overbilling for years. She presented the evidence, not with vengeance, but with professional detachment. The contract was terminated. David, knowing her history with Carl, asked if she wanted him fired. Anya thought about it. "No," she said, "but I do want to hire the night crew directly, give them benefits, better pay." And they did. One evening in early summer, David stood in the new company garden on the rooftop, a space Anya had insisted on. Maya, now 5, was chasing butterflies. Anya stood beside David, holding a cup of coffee. "You know," David said, watching Maya, "she saved more than me. She saved this whole place." Anya smiled. She just saw a person who needed a friend. Kids are good at that. David nodded. He looked out over the city, no longer a cold panorama, but a collection of stories, of struggles, of people trying their best. The silence between them was no longer the silence before something breaks. It was the quiet of something whole, finally at peace. The story doesn't end with a perfect fairy tale. David still has bad days. Anya still worries about bills, though fewer of them. The company still faces competition, but in that tower, the lights burn a little brighter. The doors stay open a little wider. And every morning, in a small daycare center filled with light and laughter, the lesson that saved a billionaire is passed on in the simplest way. Through kindness, through seeing one another, through the unshakable belief that no one is ever too far gone to be reached. We tell stories like this not because they're simple, but because they're necessary. They remind us that the most fortified walls aren't made of glass or stock prices, but of silence. The silence of grief, the silence of shame, the silence we build around ourselves when we believe no one could possibly understand the weight we carry. David Thorne had every resource imaginable, yet he was starving for a single moment of genuine connection. Anya Petrova had every reason to look away, to protect the fragile life she'd built, yet she chose to see the humanity in the man who signed her checks. And Maya, a child who hadn't yet learned the rules of hierarchy or loss, became the bridge between them simply by asking a question and refusing to be afraid of the answer. This is the quiet, subversive truth at the heart of it all. Power is fragile, influence is temporary, but a moment of shared humanity, a crayon drawing accepted, a bandage with cartoon stars applied with solemn care, a small hand reaching for a larger one in a garden that endures, that changes the trajectory of lives, of companies, of futures. How many people in your world are living behind a silent wall right now? How many are moving through their days, professionally competent yet personally isolated, waiting for someone to simply notice? And who are the unexpected bridge builders in your life? Perhaps not a child in a yellow dress, but the coworker who asks how you're really doing, the stranger whose small kindness rerouted your entire day, the person you underestimated who offered you exactly the grace you needed. If this story resonated with you, If it reminded you of a moment when someone saw you when you felt invisible, or when you had the courage to see someone else, then you understand why we do this. This channel exists for the stories that don't make the front page, but permanently alter the interior landscape of a human heart. We believe in the power of narrative to connect, to heal, to remind us of our shared, messy, beautiful humanity. So I'm inviting you to become part of this. If you want more stories that explore the profound intersections of power, vulnerability, and unexpected grace, hit that subscribe button. It's the best way to make sure you don't miss what comes next. And I would genuinely love to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Tell me about a time an unexpected person became a bridge in your life. Or share this video with one person who you think needs this message today, someone who might be in a glass tower of their own making, or someone who has the gentle courage to knock on the door. We don't shout here, we don't chase the loudest trends. We sit with the stories that are worth staying for, the ones that linger long after the screen goes dark. Because in the end, the most important things aren't built in boardrooms. They're built in the quiet spaces between us when we choose to see and choose to be seen. Thank you for listening.